About a week ago, after a lot of the tariffs were announced and the stock market started going down, I did a live stream on TikTok for about an hour. I wanted to talk with people about some of the things I've learned and seen in other periods of economic uncertainty in the US, and things that marketers can do to stay strong during these times and to stay smart and strategic, as well as things that businesses do that can put them in a bind. This conversation's a little free-flowing, it's a little all over the place, but I think there's some good nuggets in there. Keep an eye out on my socials for some clips that are relevant, but I think this is a worthwhile discussion and certainly still timely, even though we're about a week and a half past the tariff announcements. As always, email any questions to me at brandsaucepod, all one word, @gmail.com. Please subscribe and like, it really helps the podcast. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Let's get into it. Good morning. It is wild what's going on right now. I'm going to do a live Q&A, so any questions you have about brand building when things are uncertain like they are right now, yeah, let's talk about it. So if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a creator, if you're a brand builder, let's talk about it because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. This is a hard, scary time for someone who has maybe like a small business, or they're a creator, or they work on behalf of a small brand because of all the uncertainty that's happening. Let's talk about it. Like, I've lived through one of these things before. I have done a ton of real practical experience within the world of advertising and marketing. So there's a lot of things to think about in how you continue to build your brand and support your brand when things are really crazy like this. Hey, see someone just joined. Can't quite read your name. I don't want to mispronounce it. Urlo Calibra. Hey, just talking about things being crazy right now, what that means for small businesses, creators. So I'm just doing live Q&A. I'll put this out as a podcast later. Hey, Mel, thanks for joining. Peppers, what's up? So yeah, things are a little wild right now. If you are a creator, if you are working on behalf of a small brand or something like that, let's talk about what's going on and what strategies we can employ to navigate, hopefully short-term, but also what it might mean long-term if things continue to be really kind of crazy and, if that continues to affect consumer confidence, because a lot of reports coming out over the last couple of months say that there's pretty high amount of uncertainty. And I can't imagine the last couple of days is going to change much for that for your average consumer. Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's definitely given me some flashbacks to 2008, and kind of what happened there was people were really scared to spend money, and especially like me when I was younger, I was working multiple part-time jobs. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was not spending money that I didn't have to or didn't really want to. Now, granted, as a younger guy, part of that was socializing with friends when I could, but I would join up with people after they went to dinner, the friends of mine who still had full-time jobs during that. So just to illustrate that, it's, for anyone who is working on behalf of a brand, has their own brand or startup, things can be scary right now, and that is totally reasonable for both everyone as individuals, as consumers, with probably more inflation on the horizon, but also as anyone who works as a part of a brand. What does that mean? Yeah, it can be scary. Mar, thanks for stopping by. So yeah, if you are working on behalf of a brand, or you have a startup, or you're thinking about doing something, hey, Renee, good to see you. I saw, Renee, you did some sort of a store opening or something. I saw something you posted recently. ¿Qué pasa, amigo? Was that did I remember that correctly? Was that a restaurant that you were at the opening for? Hey, Catalina. Ribbon cutting. Okay, awesome. Love that. How did it go? Sorry about the noise there. Looked like a beautiful day in Chicago. Hey, Kat. So Renee's letting me know what's going on. It says, fantastic. That's great. Love to see it. So I figured I'd just do a live because, one, I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok in the US or the next couple days. We're kind of right back where we were a couple months ago. But also, obviously, a lot of kind of crazy stuff happening in kind of the macro view. And for anyone who is a marketer, works on behalf of a brand, is a creator, this is a time where there's a ton of uncertainty. And that is very warranted to feel that uncertainty. So I just wanted to have an open Q&A, talk about what people are feeling, what they're thinking in terms of, what that means for you as someone who buys stuff, buys food, pays rent, gets clothes, that type of stuff, but also for anyone who is a creator, works on behalf of a brand. What are you thinking in terms of what you might be concerned about, in terms of keeping your brand top of mind and kind of navigating what could be, hopefully, as I said, like a short period of uncertainty, but possibly like it could be the beginning of a longer period too. And that's a scary time. It can put a lot of pressures on everyone as people, and certainly for people who are running a small business or entrepreneur, and that's their, a side hustle, and certainly for a lot of people, their main source of income. So I just want to talk about what, things you can do and what you can think about with all this uncertainty. Hey, Susie. I see 4 joined. Yeah, Cohen. What's up? Thanks for stopping by. Hope everyone's having an okay day. I'll say if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat there. But also, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about holistically kind of like what this period might mean for all of us right now. And, with people, I think very rightfully so, maybe feeling a lot. I'm with you, Renee. Like, it doesn't feel amazing right now. And, for people as consumers, we buy food, we have to pay rent, we, gotta pay for public transit or put gas in the car. I think a lot of people have been feeling a lot of pressures for a long time. And on top of that, I feel like it's going to probably that squeeze is going to feel even more prominent as we probably see prices on a lot of consumer goods start to go up. So for people who work on behalf of a brand, what that means, and again, this is if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you work for a small business, if you're a creator, and you do like affiliate marketing, you sell a digital product or something like that, or you sell your services. It's what do you do when things are crazy like this? And I think part of it, so Renee, you're 100% right. That's exactly what I was going to. Like, you need to continue to do marketing efforts, and that means organic. That means paid if you can afford it, and it means really doubling down on not talking about. This is something I see with like solo entrepreneurs, especially, is they start up and they're just like, okay, I'm going to talk about my brand, and like, I'm so passionate about this. This is why I'm relevant. I love doing this, and for the person that you're trying to sell to, they don't care about that. What does your thing do for me? So stay consistent in whatever you are doing in terms of your messaging, of making sure it is laser focused on this is what we do for you. This is the benefit we give to you. This is why this is a good deal for you. And that doesn't matter if it's more of a inelastic commodity that you sell, and something where people might be a little less price sensitive, but certainly people who do anything where they are. Toasty, thank you for the badge. Thank you, appreciate that. Is looking at where was that train of thought going? It left the station. Let's go back and find it. So talking about for those things that are more kind of like more frivolous purchases, things that are entertainment related. People will still buy those when they are uncertain. When times are uncertain and people are a little nervous about what's going on, people are still going to make indulgence purchases because, buying experiences, buying something nice, like that can feel good. And especially when things feel nuts, people do want to have those things. They're going to be probably more price sensitive to some degree, but if you can make a compelling case for this is what this is going to do for you, this is why it's going to be enjoyable for you, I think you can still find an audience of people who would want to interact and, purchase or work with you, whatever it is you're doing. I think too, and as Renee mentioned, there's a great downloadable article you can find. You just search for IPA and the long and short of it by, oh gosh, I'm totally blanking on the names. Who are the guys who wrote it? This is like a major marketing thing. The long and short of it, I'm gonna kick myself. Benet and Field, of course. Les Benet and Peter Field. So this is a seminal work on marketing efficacy and looking at data and things like that. And one of the things they talk about in the long and short of it, and again, this is a free thing you can download. Just go search it, you can find it and read it. It's really helpful. The point of it that they make is that brands who invest in long-term brand building, and not just like short little spurts of like promotion. We got this thing, buy it. We got this thing, buy it. We got this thing, buy it. And that's the only thing they talk about. Their growth over time is like, it's fine. They turn on that marketing that's very promotion focused and very action focused. It helps a little bit, but the brands that really succeed are, one, the ones who stay consistent with their marketing. So as Renee mentioned, like, you got to continue to do, whether it is organic, whether it's layering in some paid, whether it's just, doing like cold calling, whatever your business is, staying in front of people and staying top of mind is going to help you long term. And on top of that, being focused not just on the promotional aspect, but what the brand is, what it means for people, what they can take from it. That stuff over time is going to help you grow more than a similar brand that just does a little bit of marketing here and there, and they do it just to be very sales focused. So yeah, things feel weird and crazy. I feel very fortunate that, I'm lucky enough to have a full-time role in an industry that is relatively stable, but I'm very fortunate to be able to say that. This is not, I love doing this. I happen to be taking the day off today. This is not my full-time job, and I'm glad that this doesn't have to be my full-time job, because it's scary. It's really scary. If you're nervous right now, you are totally warranted in feeling that. But in terms of what's going to be impactful, what's going to be useful for you, it's just staying consistent first and foremost. Something else I would say, and I have a free ebook on my site about this, if you want to go check it out, but I'll just tell you kind of what's in there right now, is something I would suggest is, people are going to be very price sensitive right now. And if you are running a lot of promotions to try to help get people kind of over that hump, you need to be careful about how frequently and how much you do in terms of kind of like those deals or sales or price reductions, because too much of that can Renee, you're 100%. I love talking to you last time because you and I are 100% on the same wavelength. If you pull your sales back or pull your price down too frequently and to too much of a degree, that's just going to degrade your brand over time. And to jump onto what Renee mentioned here in the chat is that, small businesses in general, compared to larger corporations who can also be like marketing dollars averse. Like, I will tell you that, and I think there's some people in the chat who have either currently or previously worked in the advertising industry. Even when things are good, big brands can be a little bit nervous about spending too much on marketing dollars. But think that is just magnified when you talk about a small business and how they react and what price pressures they do, they react to. And pulling back on your marketing budget, especially when things are a little nuts right now, that can put you inadvertently into a real big tailspin, and it can be really hard to recover from that. And again, going back to the long and short of it, from my PA, Les Benet and Peter Field, when you pull back on those marketing dollars, especially as a small business, you get less memorable for your target audience. Like, if you're showing up less than other competitors, and people are going to think of you less when they're in a position to buy from your category, that's just going to be a vicious cycle if you do that. So I know it can be scary when times are as uncertain as they are right now for small businesses, for smaller brands, but now it is crucial to make sure that you don't pull back too much. You can certainly think about what is going to be the most effective for us in terms of reach, in terms of what gives us the best benefit. You can maybe double down on organic stuff and layer that on top of your paid notes. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate you as always. But man, if you pull back too much, like, you're gonna be writing your own future, and it's not gonna be pretty, especially when you are being less memorable, showing up less for people when they have other options. If you pull back and people are already price averse and they think of you less because you're not out in front of them, they're going to be that much more likely to go somewhere else if they get to be in a point where they're like, I'm going to buy from this category. On the podcast last episode, I read a post from Reddit where someone, I think it was somewhere in the EU, who owned a restaurant, and something that they, like, their question was like, hey, sales have been tanking. I'm not sure what's going on. My restaurant is exactly the same. I'm in an area where it's a little bit smaller. People should know who I am. There's not tourism here. And what this restaurant owner talked about, what was kind of buried in the comments a little bit, which was crucial, is that they've been running the same kind of media over and over again, but they really bury the lead. The problem that they had was they had changed their name because there was like some international copyright issue. Their name, they didn't say what it was, but they had taken the name of the restaurant that was the same as some international brand, so they had to change it. And in the comments, people were like, wait, you had to change your name? Did anything else change? Like, no, it's the same model, it's the same food, but the name changed. And everyone was like, okay, so like, what are you doing about that? How are you communicating that to people? And they said, well, we're running some Facebook ads, and we had an article in the newspaper. How do we change the name? So I just wrote brand sauce at the bottom, Renee. So, live Q&A, brand building uncertainty. I wrote this backwards because I'm mirrored right now. And my backwards handwriting, still not amazing, but maybe it's getting a little bit better. Here, maybe I'll put it right there, the reflection right there. Yeah, so what people talked about in the comments for this restaurant is like, you need to very aggressively market and advertise the fact that your name is different, but everything else is the same. There's definitely probably a lack there because people don't know like that you have changed. They haven't, you've maybe put that out there in the newspaper, and maybe in your mind that change is obvious, but for everyone in your neighborhood, they see new name, they assume new restaurant, new model, new owners, new food. And so luckily there was a happy ending. The person chimed back in the in that thread a little bit later to say that they'd taken some of the advice of people and really doubled down on just like making sure they're communicating that the only thing that changed was the name, and that bookings were starting to be up, things were looking better. And this person was like, yeah, I own this restaurant for like nearly a decade, and like, I think I'm about done. I don't know what else to do. So it was like really scary thing. And again, this was, I think they had posted this thread on Reddit initially, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So, restaurant business in particular, I'm curious, anyone is in the comments here, restaurant industry? Because that is an industry that, as I think back to the last like real bad downturn in 2008, like that was bad for restaurants. Obviously, COVID was a real challenge for restaurants too. That's a tough industry, and like I love it, but man, it is a challenge, especially with all your input costs, labor, rent. And with that being for a lot of people, like, going to a restaurant, like that's a nice thing. That is not a common purchase. Like that can be something that people are going to pull back on if they feel like they need to save money, they need to conserve money. Like people might be cooking more at home. And so something else that's in the ebook, by the way, that I mentioned. So on the site, totally free email address. I won't email often, but something else I mentioned in the ebook. And again, you don't have to go download. I'm going to tell you exactly what's in there right now. Something I mentioned, especially when things are a little weird and a little crazy, think about what are things you can do within your brand or within your business, whatever it is you do. Can you, instead of just like discounting your existing offering, can you add in a different type of offering? And a different type of offering that is going to, one, maybe be at a lower price point, so it won't necessarily diminish your main thing or your original thing that you do. But can you also have something that is, one, at a lower price point, but also in the old adage, the people who got really rich during the gold rush in the U.S. in the 1800s, it was the people who sold the pickaxes, not the people who went digging for gold, right? So what can you do or provide for someone that is still related to what you do, but is a way for them to do their own thing? So something I saw a lot of restaurants do in COVID that I thought was really smart is, they did a lot of pickup orders, but also they sold drink kits, right? Like, here's the thing, and you can make, a version of the cocktail that we have at our restaurant. You can make that at home, and you can make it with whatever you want. And having that be just like another way to get kind of like that check average up, and do something a little bit different instead of just like, well, here's the food. Instead of coming and eating it, you can get it here. It's making it a little bit different and saying, here is something that is available for you to use. It's going to be a little bit different experience. We're putting the power in your hands. So maybe it's going to be, compared to buying a drink at a restaurant, this takeaway kit that you can make. I don't remember off the top of my head the ones that we got, but I think they were certainly like less than you would pay, when you're sitting down, but still, a way for them to get those check averages up and offer something that was going to be still relevant to people in a way where they would be interested in, in making that purchase. So what are things, let's see. Hey GeoCam, hey Daddy Pig. We're talking about things feeling a little crazy right now, and for anyone who is a solo entrepreneur who works on behalf of a small business as a creator, this can feel like a really weird time. Everything that's happening right now with the broader economic kind of viewpoint. I think a lot of people, a lot of surveys have shown a ton of continuing kind of consumer uncertainty. A lot of people have felt that since 2000 from the pandemic. Like, a lot of those pressures haven't really alleviated for a lot of people, even if over arguably the last couple of years, like maybe the stock market has leveled out. I think people as individuals, a lot of people still feel like, because prices on a lot of things that got jacked up during the pandemic didn't come down. And I think everything that's happening now is going to exacerbate not only the macro output, but also I think a lot of things, and I'm speaking more specifically for US-based consumers, but I think this could have global impacts that, this could lead to another price increase on a lot of different goods for people. And so that is going to be a real pressure for anyone who needs to buy anything, and most of us need to buy things. This will be a pressure to some degree for larger corporations, but I think they'll be able to navigate it a lot better than others. And certainly this will be a really big pressure for smaller businesses, startups, solo entrepreneurs, things like that. So just want to do like a little bit of Q&A. I think Renee's still here. I can see you up in the corner. I can see a couple people up at the corner, but just curious, like, I've been riffing for a little bit. Anyone have any questions, or what's anyone feeling? What's the state of kind of like whatever, business you work on behalf of, what's going through your head right now? We talked a little bit earlier about how, especially for small businesses in this type of environment, it's really important to keep things going, like keep your marketing efforts on. And that is certainly continuing to do really aggressive organic where it makes sense. Keep in touch with your existing customer base, but also, as much as you're able, try not to pull back too much on any of your paid advertising. Something that on that end, again, there's another thing in that free ebook there. This was more in 2008, but I think actually what happened as a part of that kind of pullback and recession is that, especially in digital media, I think a lot of those prices for doing digital advertising, I think actually dropped a little bit when there was maybe less overall volume, less businesses, and less competition. We'll see whether or not that happens currently in like this current scenario. What happens? Hey Gabby, thanks for stopping by. It's really, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know whether or not digital marketing is actually going to be cheaper for people in industries, depending on what happens with platforms. But also, a lot of the platforms are a lot more mature than they were in 2008. Like Facebook and Instagram, like that is just a massive infrastructure of so many different like ways to advertise and promote things. Same with YouTube and even like LinkedIn, TikTok as well. TikTok, if it remains in the US, we will see. So because these are more established platforms now and they are beholden to shareholders, small businesses may not get as much of a benefit of the type of pullback in terms of just like maybe a little bit less in media dollar expenditure necessary to reach people as they saw in 2008. It could happen though. And again, that can be a function both of platforms trying to encourage more people, especially smaller businesses, to advertise on them. That can also be a function of fewer overall businesses trying to advertise on those different platforms. Renee, yeah, AI is making marketing affordable. Certainly, depending on like what you're talking about, I want to hear a little bit more what you're thinking specifically in regards to that. I think for a brand that has kind of like a built-out overall kind of strategy, marketing framework, things like that, if you are looking to make some additional assets to put into paid or organic, like there's certainly plenty of ways AI can get there. I have done just a very small amount. I have a lot of mixed feelings on AI personally as a marketer. I've used it within Brand Sauce when I've done transcripts for the podcast. I've plugged those into ChatGPT and had them summarize and reformat them a little bit cleanly, because when they come right out, it's just like a wall of text. And so to put them on the website to help my search optimization there, I've had just formatted a little bit more nicely so you can read it. Certainly people are exploring a lot with image generation, with doing copywriting and things like that. And I would say in general, my kind of thought on there and my approach to AI as a tool within marketing so far is it's not a replacement, but certainly it's a way where you can get things done perhaps a little bit more efficiently, even in like an employee not to perform. So the way that I've used it, and this is even my full-time job too, we have some basically like walled versions of it that our teams can use. We can use it to draft like an email. Let's say like I need to write an email about this product and I want to talk about these specific features, and can you just give me some options? Or I need some banner headlines, or I need some social headlines, or some email headlines. And using that platform, which is essentially like ChatGPT, using that to draft stuff. And then I take it and kind of craft it a little bit and make sure that like it's all hitting all the points. Like that's actually been helpful. And there was a product I built a campaign for before I moved teams last year, where I got basically like a full campaign ready for this product, drafted up in about a day and a half of work, where previously like I may have needed to work with an outside agency or done a lot of copywriting like myself from scratch. And it felt like an accelerator and was able to help me get things done faster. I still did like the final writing on everything, but I used it as basically like a brainstorming tool to get things done. Now, certainly that's just one way you can use it. There's a lot of different ways you can use either like for content generation or certainly like automations and things like that. There's a lot of different ways that one of those platforms can kind of plug in a little bit and help alleviate that. My other caution for anyone in small business or solo entrepreneur with AI specifically is just be aware that if you're using it to do okay, Renee, I'm going to make this point. While I'm making this point, I want to hear a little bit more about what you mean there. I want to hear about what your augmentation is, how that's working for you. What I was going to say on AI though specifically is that if you are using it to create core visuals where you don't have an existing like brand identity, if you're using it to write marketing collateral, and you're just going to use it straight out of that output, just be aware that there is kind of like a default AI voice, and that there are probably a lot of people or businesses who are using the same tools in the same way. So if you are too over-dependent on the way that you use that and have that plug into your overall marketing workflow, what my concern would be and what my caution would be is that you don't want to sound too much like everyone else. And you don't want to sound like, you don't want to have that AI voice coming across to people, because that is going to make you blend in with your category. And part of the point of effective marketing is to stand apart from your competition, to be distinct. And it's harder to do that if you sound like everyone else, you're saying the same things, your sentences are structured in the same way. And certainly, like I know I'm focusing on a very small part of what all of automation and things like that can do for large businesses or smaller businesses, but that's certainly like one of the use cases for it. Yeah, Canva is doing that. There's plenty of creators within this platform who talk about the Canva logos and just like how using something that everyone else is going to use is not going to be a really great way to stand apart when you look like everyone else. One creator I like a lot that I'll stitch her stuff is Christina Super Lunar Design, I think her name is, and that's like one of her big things is just like talking about like how much Canva logos can suck and how they just kind of blend in with everything else. And something interesting that she does in some of her content, if you're interested, is showing how she would take a default out the box Canva logo and kind of make it something a little unique and distinct. I will say, so I'm not a designer by trade. I know good design when I see it. I like it, but I can't do it, and that's okay because that's not what I do, full-time or part-time. But I will say for brand sauce, the stuff I have, like, it's mostly like kind of riffs on some stuff that I found within Canva. I've done a lot of work to try to make it my own thing and make it a little distinct, and I try to use it consistently. But also it's like this, if I was trying to make this business or this account, this brand be more than it was, and I was able to have a lot more stuff coming in, like one of the first things I would actually do is work with an actual designer to make it a whole identity system be a little bit more distinct. And again, I think especially when things are a little crazy, like they feel like they're going to be, having a brand that is distinct, is memorable, that sticks out. Renee, see you next time. Thanks for stopping by. As always, I'll see you in the feeds. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, just in the times that I feel like we might be coming up against with a lot of consumer pressures, with just a lot of uncertainty, and with brands maybe not having as much, especially when we talk about smaller brands, as much resources to promote as they would when things are really good. What the importance of having a really distinct visual identity is going to be even more so important now than it is when times are good. Because if you have, if things are good and like you're able to just like spend, having something that's a little bit more generic or maybe blends in with the competition in terms of a visual identity or logo is not as big a deal, because you can make up for that with spend. But if you are not able to spend as much or promote as much or market as much for a small brand, having something that is really distinct that pops out is going to be even more important for you, because again, the name of the game when you are brand building as a creator, as a small business, as a solo entrepreneur, is making yourself memorable and distinct from everyone else in your category, so that people can remember you, so that when they are thinking about purchasing from your category, can they think of you first versus your competition. That's the whole name of the game. Like, if I were to simplify everything I've learned through undergrad, grad school, working at agencies, working in-house, working freelance, doing this shit for 15, 20 years almost, that's the name of the game of marketing right there. Can you be distinct? Can you be memorable? And can people remember you when they are in the place where they're going to buy from your category? That's the same for consumer packaged goods. That's the same for automobiles, for clothing, for like literally, cities you would want to live in, or, places you'd want to work. Any type of interaction that you would make where you're making a decision amongst a category, there's going to be marketing involved, and marketing that is successful is marketing that's going to do that. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for stopping by. So yeah, if anyone else right now is like feeling pressures, you're not alone. And if anyone has any questions about, or just things they're thinking about in terms of like, how do I keep this brand kind of going, or how do I keep my foot on the gas while things are a little nuts right now, drop it in the comments. Happy to chat a little bit. But I had already planned on kind of taking the day off. My family's adopting the puppy this afternoon, so I was like, I'm gonna get some stuff taken care of and get ready for that puppy. But figured I'd just hop on and chat a little bit and see what people are thinking, see what people are going through. But yeah, this feels not amazing right now. I am nervous in part on behalf of like my full-time job, obviously, as I'm sure a lot of people are right now. Like, what's going to happen with everything going on if prices suddenly jump for a lot of categories and for a lot of people? What's that going to mean for our companies? Like, it wasn't pretty in 2008, and this feels like it could be 2008 again. But especially for so many people who do some sort of either a side hustle, or are a solo entrepreneur, or a small business owner or leader, or work on behalf of an organization like that. Yeah, this can feel weird. This can feel scary, and that is totally warranted, because it is uncertain when people feel like the floor could fall out from under them at any moment, and they got to conserve as much of their resources as they have. That affects small businesses. It does affect big businesses to some degree, but all the small businesses that I think help kind of make all of our different communities feel interesting, feel vibrant, feel unique, those are the ones that are most likely to suffer. And that is something that is just, it's horrifying to think about. And I'm scared that that's what's going to happen. So that's why I'm doing a live today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about things that we should do as anyone who is involved in small business or owning their own brand. Again, one of the key takeaways, just you need to stay consistent. Stay in front of the people that are going to be important to you, and to keeping your brand not only just like staying level, but hopefully like you can find ways to either pivot in your offering, or in your communication strategy, or in your audience makeup, to have your brand potentially grow in a period like this. Hey, Wen, thanks for stopping by. Because yeah, it feels weird. I don't have a ticker up in front of me right now, but I was looking kind of pre-market. It's like, yeah, things seem bad. Someone says tariffs over here. Someone has retaliatory tariffs over here. This, like, it's just, it's all bad. It's all bad. So I think if suddenly, someone would announce, well, we're not going to do this anymore, I think some of that toothpaste is already out of the tube and it's not going to go back in. So I think some degree of uncertainty is probably going to be with us, at least for the short term. And unfortunately, depending on how things go, it could be for the long term too. So how do you stay consistent, especially when you feel like your resources might be limited? So that is continuing to invest the time and effort into doing organic marketing. So when I say organic, that means, like posting on TikTok or Instagram and not putting media dollars behind it. That means continuing to send out emails to customers and trying to set up referral programs so your existing customers can find like-minded potential customers for you, for your business. All things you can do that take effort, but not media dollars. Certainly you got to continue to invest in that. And if you're lucky enough to work at a small business large enough to have a marketing team, make sure that the marketing team you have, or if you have like a freelancer or a contractor, make sure you continue to do that stuff, because that is going to be crucial. I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok in the next couple days here, but there is, across all the different kind of like standard digital social channels, there's always the opportunity for organic discovery and like algorithmic kind of like explosion. Like, part of the reason why I've been so fortunate on TikTok is I had a couple of videos that like popped off in a really big way, and that was just random. Like, my first video that got me probably like 10,000 followers, I think when I posted I had like 40, so I'm very fortunate. I'm very glad that happened. But just saying that in terms of, you never know when something you post for whatever reason is going to catch and take off. So you need to continue to invest in that stuff. And then additionally too, like for, again, it's dependent on industry to some degree, but if you have those dollars where you can invest in, like, I'm going to put some money in programmatic, I'm going to put some money in paid search, or I'm going to put some money in pre-roll video, doing those types of things and trying to keep those things on as much as possible. So you're not only reaching people who are already aware of you, but trying to get your brand, your company in front of a wider audience of people who would hopefully remember you and then consider you when they're in a place to say, yes, I want to make a purchase from this category and this brand I keep seeing and I like what they're doing. It aligns with me, it aligns with my values. It seems like the product is going to do what I want it to. I'm going to buy from them. Those are the two of the key things I would say, is continue to really do a lot of that organic content for both like the immediate discovery, but also hopefully setting yourself up to be discovered by someone who is like searching for something like tips on something like that. Having all that body of content out there, continue to add to that, that'll help discovery. But then what can you do in terms of paid media on top of that? And again, like, I don't know what's going to happen to paid media costs, especially like on digital channels. In 2008, some of those costs actually did come down a little bit. That was a function of the companies, like Facebook and Google, trying to encourage especially smaller businesses to spend more money there. But I think it was also a function of less competition. So the cost per 1,000 impressions or the cost per click went down because there were fewer smaller businesses jumping in and trying to say, yes, like, I'm going to drive this price up because I'm going after the same customers that you are. So, yeah, let me pull up the old ticker now and see what's going on. Is it bad? Yep, still bad. I see a lot of red there on that screen. I'm going to close that down because that is bumming me out. Yeah, what am I going to do for this? So, again, this is kind of like something on the side that I do for the fun of it, and I've freelanced as a marketer and a videographer for close to 2 decades now. It's been a long time, and I have a few like kind of long-standing clients where it's like it's easy work. I do it every now and again. I can do it on nights and weekends, and that's great. I think for brand sauce specifically, of how I'm thinking about this is, one, I want to make sure I have like something to do if the bottom falls out of my regular career, which I hope it doesn't. But what I am constantly thinking about with this is, how do I make sure that if someone has a question about marketing, if they are thinking about starting a small business, they have a side hustle, they work as a part of a smaller organization, they got to figure something out, can I be discoverable by them if they're looking for like, how would an agency do this, or what's a smart way to think about this particular marketing strategy, or how do I build a brand strategy or a marketing plan? Having my stuff be discoverable, one, is great because, I get, for every view, like that just kind of helps me algorithmically and it helps me find more reach. But also, I do offer through this consults, which I've done remotely. I've done a few consult calls since I've started this up. I have some purchasable templates and things like that, which I've sold a few of, which is great. And then also, I haven't done any direct like video production or like full brand strategy, like soup to nuts, like here's what your brand is about, here's what you talk about, here's your plan. But that's like an offering on the site. So every time that I find people organically, or people discover me organically without paid, that's an opportunity for me to have one of those types of transactions and help someone out with that kind of like experience I have. But again, like part of my strategy on this is really doubling down on the organic side. I've done very little paid promotion on this because again, that's like not kind of the model that I want for this. But certainly, especially as things continue to look uncertain and a little scary, I'm going to continue to do organic content. I'm going to try to sprinkle in some things that are a little bit more specific. Like I have a drafted video right now on like, here's how you build a brand strategy in the Get to Buy framework. I'm just going to walk you through how to do it real quick, figure it out. And there's not going to be any promotion or anything like that in there, but if people see that and they're like, this makes sense, and they save it, maybe they check out my profile, maybe, a fraction of a percent of the people who would see that video would potentially like down the road be someone who would at least sign up for emails, and if they have a specific question, like hire me for like a short-term or longer-term consult or something. So that's a specific, like, it's a very specific industry and kind of like business case. But I think if you have a restaurant or you have some other type of, service-based business that is local, it's the same kind of thing. Like, what can you do to not only make sure that any existing customers you might have stay aware of you and what you're doing, what you're offering? Can you change your offering a little bit or add different levels of service on there to meet people maybe where they're at in terms of their comfort in spending money? And can you layer in on top of that paid digital promotion to reach a slightly wider audience? There's a lot of different ways you can think about that, of the paid component of it. But as we talked about a little bit earlier in the chat and on screen here, is that when things are like they feel right now, when I pull up the stock ticker and things are real red, and they've been real red, and it seems like they're going to continue to be red, a thing that a lot of small businesses will do is they'll feel out this environment, and one, they will pull back on their marketing dollars, which is not great for long-term growth and sustained growth. And two, they will often try to combat that with maybe doing some significant like sales or discounts. And when you do a sale or discount like that, if you do too many of them, what that can actually do is diminish the brand that you have been building over time. So if it's the type of category where someone's just going to buy from you one time and that's going to be it, that's maybe not as big a deal. But if you are selling a consumable good, like if you're in consumer packaged goods and you're selling, like canned water or something like that, if you are cutting yourself down by reducing your price over time, it becomes more commoditized and people care less about that particular brand. So that's why you see, some like a luxury brand, you don't see them cut price too much. Now, granted, like there's different levels of that things, and there are brands and companies who are very comfortable playing like we're in this budget space here. So maybe the effects that they would feel long term would be a little bit less. But it's a gamble. You don't know for sure like what's going to happen, and I think it's a little bit of a case by case basis. But in general, if you continue to undercut yourself, people have that expectation of like, I'm just going to wait till the next time they have a sale. And if that product or that service that you are undercutting yourself on to try to keep your existing customers, maybe bring from you in, it can be kind of a vicious cycle where effectively over time you might devalue whatever it is that you do and offer to people. So be careful with that. Instead of doing a lot of discounts, I would say instead offer a lower tier where people could come in and get part of the experience or a different version of the product, and actually having those two choices, then that can actually be to your advantage. If someone says, okay, here's like the basic version of something and here's the, the premium version, people might look at that and be like, you know what, that price difference between the two, like it's actually worth it for me to make the premium version. I want to do that instead. So that can be a way actually to help not only grow your overall audience of consumers, but potentially a way to, in a soft way, sort of upsell a little bit, where if you're not feeling like you're losing money on that budget version of whatever new thing you roll out, you might be selling more of the premium version. So, I think it's very easy to say and a lot harder to do, to try to not panic. Try to just, be steady, be thoughtful. But if you are going to pull back on media dollars, on media spend, based on kind of what we're seeing and anticipating maybe some consumer hesitation, I would say look very carefully at how much all of the different channels that you're using are costing you, and how much you're able to track what they are doing for you and how much business they're bringing in. Because that can be, maybe in a way, like say, for example, if I'm doing YouTube pre-roll, I'm doing paid search, and I'm doing promoted TikToks, for example, right? If those are like the three things that I'm doing, and I see, all right, paid search is like, it's costing me a ton for every click, but it brings in X amount of dollars. And YouTube pre-roll and TikTok promotion, like it seems like I'm reaching equivalently the same amount of people, but the cost is a little bit different. Maybe you pull back spend in one channel and push it up a little bit in the other, because like maybe you'll be spending less money overall but still getting equivalent eyeballs. Like that's the kind of math that you need to do. Like instead of just pulling back on everything and saying we're not going to spend anything, you could instead say, okay, where are we getting like the most mileage in terms of overall reach for people, or in terms of click through and people actually coming through and like making a purchase, if you have an online version of a purchase funnel for your business. So yeah, again, for me, I think my MO on BrandSoft specifically is going to continue to be investing in organic, doing a little bit of email marketing, and maybe shifting a little bit of my content to focus a little bit more on some of like how to do some of these things, because some of that stuff has performed well in the past. Some things that have done pretty well on reach, not surprisingly, have been like when I've talked about Detroiters, or I've talked about corporate rebrands. Like there's, I talked about the Tropicana rebrand fiasco from years ago, like a lot of creators have, and that one happened to catch on. A more recent one was on the Lyle's Golden Syrup rebrand. For any EU Anglophiles in the audience, you'll know that brand, but I talked about that. And that stuff, because people understand that brand and they want to see a little bit more about it, that's an organic way for me to reach a little bit more people, but that doesn't necessarily do a lot to talk about my brand and what I do. So similarly, for a lot of other brands that do organic content, especially like in TikTok, something that you see some brands try to do is jump on like whatever dance trend happens to be going on a platform, right? And on one hand, like a brand doing something like that where people are enjoying things and, they will watch like, oh, I understand this like a little music hook, or I understand this camera setup. Like that can be a way for a brand to reach more people. But if your brand is all about just doing that type of trend hopping, you're not doing a lot to actually build your brand. And actually, I will say, a lot of people don't like seeing brands hop on that kind of stuff anyway. So it may be a double-edged sword. So think about what is going to be interesting to the people you need to reach, the type of people who buy from your category, who hopefully buy from your business. What can you do for them that's going to be interesting, that's going to be relevant, but also hopefully be something that's going to be distinct and ownable to you. I think actually for me, that's one of the things I've been lacking in a little bit in my last couple months of organic content within here and elsewhere, is that a lot of what I've done has been good for maybe like finding eyeballs, but not talking about me and my POV and what I do. So similarly for you, like if you have a makeup brand, if you have, if you're a real estate agent, if you do any of these other things, if what you're doing is not related to what you do. If you're just doing a trend to try to be on a trend to try to get eyeballs, that may not be the best way actually to do organic marketing, especially when things are kind of a little uncertain right now. So let's see, what time is it? 9:30. Was I going to go for 45 minutes? I don't remember. That's all right. I'll keep talking a little bit. If anyone else has any comments or thoughts or things that they're thinking about or dealing with, drop them in the chat right now. Happy to talk, answer any questions. I'll do it from the POV of me being a creator in this space, but also me having worked in the ad agency space for a lot of really large clients, for me being in-house at a Fortune 500 right now in the marketing department, kind of the things that I'm thinking about on all those different lenses. And I've worked with a ton of small brand startups. I worked on a apparel startup a couple of years ago, did marketing support for them. I've worked on a lot of nonprofits in my local community here. So I've seen a lot and I've thought about this stuff a lot, and I've lived through, something kind of crazy like this in the past too. So any things that you're thinking about or you're worried about or you want a gut check, drop them in the chat. Happy to talk about it. Otherwise, I'll just keep hanging out and keep talking about other things that I'm thinking about. For my for my full-time role, it's not this. It's a more specific audience, and I think in general that industry is probably less sensitive to economic upswings and downswings. It doesn't really react to that, but certainly we do have a lot of pressures in terms of keeping our media budgets in check. For example, there's one on a couple products right now, something we're working against is one of the channels that we've used has kind of dramatically increased their price for reach on a particular platform and network. And what myself as the marketing manager and my team and my digital marketing partners are all looking at is okay, if this is going to cost us this much and here's what we can get out of this platform and here's the type of data we can see, what can we do in substitution of that? Where can we replicate that reach in different channels for equivalent or less money? Because the cost has gone up so much. We don't want to turn off our advertising efforts, but can we be a lot more efficient with them? And I think the answer is we can. So that's something we've been talking about a lot. We don't have a solid plan in place yet, but those are the conversations we're happening, is that, we want to make sure that we're able to track, are people coming through to the website? Are they filling out a form? Are they just spending time and learning about what we offer? We're getting on the platform that jacked up its prices a ton. We were getting some decent metrics out of it, but we weren't necessarily able to tie all the way through. If you think about a classic sales funnel, can we tie people seeing us here in this particular channel all the way down to they made a purchase and this is how much money we made off of it. There are other channels we might be able to spend an equivalent amount of money or maybe even a little bit less where we could see that type of that data, which would certainly be super helpful for us. So that's certainly something that we're looking at. And that's even outside of all the economic stuff that's happening right now. But that's just us trying to think, how can we be more efficient and economical with the spend that we do have? For a smaller business, I think, especially, again, things feel very uncertain right now. Turning off paid media, if that's been a part of your marketing strategy, that is going to potentially start a very ugly kind of perpetual cycle of just less overall reach, which means less overall sales, which means less money to spend, which means less investment in outreach, which means less sales coming in. And it can just be this really ugly spiral down to the doors being closed permanently. So as I've said a few times on this stream, yeah, things are scary. You want to maybe conserve some of your funds and not spend crazy on advertising. But instead of saying we're going to turn off advertising, understand you're very likely just going to be turning off the spigot of incoming business. You're going to severely limit the amount of people that are buying from your brand. And I think this is broadly true across a lot of different categories. Instead, think about what can we maybe make up for with paid with really effective organic, email, direct outreach, or just organic posting, or maybe stepping up our organic posting within like TikTok or Instagram or other channels. And then additionally, looking at the overall mix of media that you are spending. How much are you spending in each channel? How many eyeballs are you reaching? And are you able to track those through to sales? And looking very critically, it's like, all right, channel A is costing us this much money, and we're maybe getting this many eyeballs, and then channel B is costing us this much money, but getting us equivalent amount of eyeballs. And maybe they're a little bit different, but if you can pull back on the spend here and maybe even bump up a little bit, are you actually in totality reaching more eyeballs with less spend? That's something you should be doing no matter what is going on, but certainly when we're in an environment where people are going to be very conscious of the money that they're spending on media. Because as someone mentioned, Renee mentioned in the comments here at the beginning, that one of the first things typically that a small business will do when things are uncertain is they're going to turn off their marketing dollars. And if you're not marketing to people, how are you going to bring business in, especially as a small business? The classic example is Coca-Cola. You don't have to like Coke. I don't like Coke. I drink Diet Coke. I drink that garbage. But Coca-Cola, they spend more on advertising than anyone else. And this goes to the book I've mentioned, not recently, but How Brands Grow, volumes 1 and 2. Marketing science, like looking at data and everything. What they show is, in general, regardless of category or industry, the brands that spend the most on advertising and then have the highest share of voice. So how easy is it for someone to think of this brand when they think of the category? Whoever spends the most money and has the highest share of voice, they tend to have the highest share of category over time. So if you are a small business in a smaller category, or maybe a category where there's other small players and some big players, those big players aren't going to pull back on their advertising as much. Those small players might. If you do the same, you're going to lose probably that share category. But if your other small competition cuts down a little bit on their marketing, but you stay consistent, or you may even find a way where you can be more efficient with that spend, is that going to be an opportunity for you to grow? It might be. Like, that's the interesting thing about these types of kind of like economic scenarios that we kind of find ourselves in right now. And again, I hope it's not long. I hope it's over soon, but I don't know. I'm not the one in charge. I can't write a memo and change things, I wish I could. But for, potentially a long-term kind of downturn, or, kind of tightening of all this, weirdly, it can be an opportunity for smaller businesses actually to grow and steal share from the category. Because if other businesses are not aggressively going after customers, if they turn off their marketing efforts, but you're able to plus up your marketing efforts a little bit and find those other consumers, find those other, those other people that are buying the category, that can actually be an opportunity for you to grow, which seems insane, but this did happen in the 2008 recession. There were small businesses that were able to grow because they were able to stay consistent or outspend smaller category buyers. And so smaller category buyers kept making the self-inflicted errors of not investing in marketing, not investing in outreach, not investing in staying top of mind for consumers. That was an opportunity for them to steal some of that share. And so for those people who, when they're ready to make a purchase in that category and they hadn't heard from one brand for 5 months, but they've been hearing a lot from this other brand for 5 months, they're like, well, I'll give this brand a try if I haven't tried them before. And if they have a good experience, maybe they'll consider them again on the second time, they're ready to buy from the category. Again, this is not just the way that consumer marketing like CPG works. This is the way a lot of industries work. Like literally, and thinking about a typical person who buys an automobile. You might buy, over the course of your life, if you buy and drive cars, you might buy maybe 5 cars over the course of your life. And some people are just like, I really like this brand. I believe in it. I'm going to buy it. And some people jump around. Like some people will not buy the same car brand twice. And it doesn't matter whether or not they had a good experience or bad experience. It can be just like, well, I wanted to try something else, and I liked how this brand showed up. So like I went from, I had a Toyota, and a couple years ago, it was getting pretty old, getting up there. I'd kind of driven it into the ground. I think I was able to get like $500 credit for it, but then I went from a Toyota, I went to a Mazda, because I'd heard about Mazda for years. Like literally the Zoom commercials that Mazda did when probably I was the only person alive in high school. They did this campaign where it's just this kid saying zoom zoom, and it's all about how the car just goes really fast, really good, fun to drive. Like, that was part of it. Now, part of the reason why I bought a Mazda was because it had really good ratings from like Consumer Reports. Like, it's a very reliable car, low maintenance cost, good gas efficiency, fuel efficiency. And I test drove one and was like, yes, I like driving this. I like the way it feels, and I feel pretty confident in that I'm going to be able to have this vehicle for a long time. That auto industry, like that experience in the same kind of math I'm talking about, it's not dissimilar from how people buy bread or people choose buying a soft drink or something. Consumer some things that they purchase like multiple times a month versus maybe once every 10 years. It's all the same kind of stuff. And again, the name of the game, whether things are good and consumers are happy and they're able and willing to spend money, or if they're more like now where we are at the end of an extended period of people feeling like their dollar is not going very far and they're maybe nervous about making purchases. And especially right now, like last 48 hours, there's probably been some people who have been, stocking up on some staples and stuff because they're worried about what things are going to cost. Even when things are like this, the name of the game in promoting your small business and building your brand is staying consistent in front of people, not only the people who have already bought from you and buy from your category, but other people who are unaware of you. Can you continue to grow that overall reach and build out that mind share? Because the more likely people are to remember you, the more able they are to remember you when they are ready to buy from the category that you play in, the easier it is for them to remember you, the more likely they will be to buy from you. And if you can stay consistent, you might have an opportunity actually where you can grow during whatever this period is, however long it lasts. So I think, let's see. Ooh, yeah. Okay. I got a pop-up notification from TikTok that my live is going to be done in a little bit, or at least I've gone to the time I have. So again, thank you everyone for stopping by. I'm not going to turn off right now. If anyone has a question or is thinking about something, I'm just curious, like for people who are watching right now, anyone have a small brand, work on behalf of a small brand, work in marketing, anyone just like concerned as a consumer of like, I'm worried, coffee is going to be more expensive. My wife likes to bake, and like, I'm thinking, do I need to buy some vanilla right now? Because vanilla might go through the roof, right? In the next week. How's everyone doing? How's everyone feeling? It's okay to feel nervous. I think it would be weird if you weren't feeling nervous about just everything. If no one wants to jump in the chat, that's okay. So yeah, I would say for anyone, as just like an individual person, like try as much as we're all able to. We should all be, filling up that savings account as much as we can right now. Try not to spend money that you don't need to, trying to make big expenditures. If you do have something where that like, I'm going to have to replace this thing or that thing, like, my computer's about to die and I need that for work and freelance. Probably a good time to maybe think about getting something now before whatever happens increases the price of those things. Try to save your money as best you can. That's what my immigrant grandmother would say, save your money. And then as someone who works in a small business, you have a brand, you're an entrepreneur, you're a creator, stay consistent as much as you're able. If you need to pull back on your paid media dollars, because that's one of the line items it seems like you can most easily reduce your spend on, don't just cut that spend off. See if you can reduce it and see if there are ways where you can still hopefully pay less in that, but can you maybe optimize towards, instead of clicks or completed purchases, which are good, especially if you're able to tie your media to a completed purchase, like that's worthwhile. But in general, if you need to cut back, maybe make sure that where you're still continuing to invest is in that overall reach. Like, can you get in front of a large audience of people? Can you do it for less than you are now? And can you make sure that like you're getting in front of people multiple times? Try to stay with that and layer on top like all your organic efforts. Also, For loyal customers you might have for your business, make sure you have some sort of reward or loyalty program built in if you don't currently. Like, try to make sure that they feel seen and appreciated, and give them some sort of benefit to that. And then additionally, for your existing audience, do you have some sort of like referral thing where they will be rewarded if they are able to find other people for you, especially like for service type industries. So that's like real estate, or people who do work for, like, if you do like a remodeling company or something like that, or you do yard work or landscaping, those types of things where referrals are actually like really valuable. Do people know who have used you before? Do they know that they can do that on your behalf, and do they know that you will reward them for doing that on behalf? Get something like that figured out if you don't have it already, because that type of stuff is very valuable, especially for things that are a little bit higher kind of like threshold. Word of mouth from friends and family, that stuff goes a really, really long way. Okay, I can hear my voice getting a little quieter and a little hoarse as I've been kind of riffing here for a little bit, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here pretty quick. But again, thank you all for like stopping by and hanging out for a little bit. Yeah, things feel weird right now. They will probably continue to feel weird and a little uncertain for a little while. But try to stay consistent with everything that you do. Try to make sure that you are staying top of mind for the people that is important for your business, for your category, for your brand. And as much as possible, try to think about ways that you can continue to show up and be relevant for not only your existing customers, but for any new customers who might find you in your industry. Again, these are scary times, but they are times where a business that thinks through things strategically and does things bravely can actually come out of whatever a period of uncertainty like this feels like. They can actually come out of these types of periods even better off, potentially. Be careful, be smart, be strategic. I'm around. Reach out, drop a question, send me an email. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't. Sign up for the emails if you haven't. I'm not going to email you too much. But as always, I love talking about this stuff. And especially I love talking about it when it's helping support smaller businesses, individuals, entrepreneurs. It just feels good. It feels good to help small businesses succeed with this piece of the overall small business puzzle. It's a small piece of it, but it's an important piece of it. So I'm here to help. I'm here to chat. Keep some money in your bank account if you're able to. Go find the spare change that are in your couch cushions and put them in the piggy bank, all right? We will figure this all out. We'll figure it out. It's scary right now. Hopefully it's not scary for long. All right. I'll see you on TikTok. I'll see you on Instagram. I'll see you on the podcast. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by. Have a good afternoon. Try not to watch the news too much, all right? Talk to you guys later. Bye.